What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for another installment of my Dear Jon Q&A series. Dear Jon is where I of course take a detailed viewer question and then I give an answer in video form because I feel it needs more explanation. Now, I recently had a few questions lined up, but as I went to try and film those, I didn't feel particularly inspired. I just didn't feel like they merited a video. So I am obviously still taking your comments in the comment section down below. Started with Dear Jon so I can Control F and find you, but I did ask you guys over in the community tab here on YouTube, and I was like, hit me with some questions because it's filming day for Dear Jon, and I don't have an episode yet, and you guys came through in the clutch. Today I'll be talking about my reviewing process, how I listen to an album or a single, we'll differentiate between the two, talk about various routines I might have that involve actually going into and diving into a record. So make sure you leave a like on the video, and let's get to my viewer Colby's question. What is your process when it comes to reviewing an album? Is it a different process when you review albums that are not so much in your wheelhouse, such as hip-hop? Thank you so much for the question, Colby. That's definitely a good one, and it's one that I've probably touched on here and there, but never really head-on tackled it in a video. So that's exactly what we're going to do here today. Clearly, there is a big difference between reviewing singles and reviewing EPs and albums, so let's start with the easier target here, singles. Singles are something that, of course, just like albums or EPs, it's different for everyone. How many times do you listen to something, John? Well, The Needle Drop and many other critics, even fans, always say, you know, it really just depends. It depends on the album. Some you might only have to hear 3 times, some you actually need to hear more like 10. And while the 10 is pushing it, that's a bit extreme. I don't think that I've had to listen to an album 10 times to review it in a very long time, but still, everything is different. But as far as singles go, that is something that I tend to give a little bit more attention to, maybe a few more repeated plays just because it is just generally one song, or maybe these days they drop 2 songs at the start of the album release cycle. And that's something where I feel personally like I need to hear those songs at least 3 times. I'm not one of these reaction channels because my reaction would just be me sitting there. It'd be me sitting there probably kind of like bobbing my head trying to get into the vibe. And if I'm reacting to it, then I'm not actually hearing the song, and what's the point? I've never understood that. With singles, I really try to hone in on the vibe of the song the first time around, just to kind of feel it out, see what it's all about. And then the second through the 4th listen, generally, that's me trying to unpack lyrics, if lyrics are particularly important to this band or artist, and me trying to really understand the overall crafting of the song. Maybe different layers, maybe a beat, whatever it is that I'm trying to decipher, that's where I'm hunting for it. And on that final listen, I'm also kind of thinking about my personal take on it, because generally at that point, you have a good idea if you actually like the song, if you have criticisms of it, or if you straight up cannot stand it. And that's really how I go through a single. I unpack it in layers, and then on that final run through, I just make sure, okay, they did this in the bridge, they did this in the chorus, okay, the little guitar solo or the little electronic breakdown, whatever it is, I find myself making sure that I'm familiar with the ins and outs of the song before I actually go to talk about it on camera. Now, to break out the big guns, probably what you came here to hear, you want to hear how I review an album. What is my process? How do I unpack it? How do I comprehend it? What do I do to actually get myself into an album, get myself listening to it, to give it a chance, whatever I need to do. It just depends, of course, like I said, how many listens I need. And generally, at minimum, I'm giving 3 to 4 listens, never less than 3. I have never reviewed anything that I have heard less than 3 times in the 2014 to present time. Now, I did in the past review a couple of albums in just 2 listens, and I even say to this day that I think that that is absolutely ridiculous that I have done that and that other people do that, because I don't think that's enough time to really truly give an album a chance. You have to hear it at least 3 times. Maybe that's just me, but I do feel like you need to give it a chance, a proper one. Generally speaking, to start off, on my first listen, I'm actually just playing the album in the background. I'll give it my attention, of course, but I'm probably working on something else. With the amount of videos that I generally produce between ARTV and beyond ARTV, I'm generally looking into something else, maybe researching something, trying to come up with ideas, writing down notes for various different videos. But I'll play the album for the first time in the background. That's generally where I try to kind of pick up on maybe some melodies, the overall tone of the record, if it's going to be more lyrical, if it's going to be more beat driven or guitar driven, and it's focusing more on instrumentation rather than lyrics and presentation. And I just obviously get an overall feeling of, do you think you're going to like this, John? Do you think this is going to be something that you're going to continue enjoying and unpacking it, or is it going to become a chore because this is so mind-bendingly bad? Then, on my second listen, that's generally where I actually like to sit down and just give it my undivided attention, where I'll shut off the distractions to the best of my ability, but in this technological world, you know that can be kind of hard. But I generally try to put on my music visualizer. I like to do that just so that I can find myself kind of focusing on what's in front of me. It's not that it's a distraction with the visualizer. In fact, I think it actually makes me pay attention to the music, the lyrics, and everything like that a lot more. Depending on the album, the third listen might be my final, but with most these days, I find myself needing more, just because in this distracted, ADHD-driven world, I find that I sometimes need more listens to actually absorb the material that's there in front of me. And on the third listen, if it's my final one, of course, that's when I'm going to bring up the lyrical content, whether it be if I have a printout, if I've actually purchased the record already, but generally I'm just looking it up on Genius, or if the lyrics are available on the artist's website or something like that. Then I find myself studying along each song, just kind of seeing what they have to say, making sure that I didn't mishear something or there wasn't a misunderstanding with something in one of the verses or something like that. And if it's not my final listen, then the third one is one where I kind of like to go back to more of the vibe of what I said the first time around, where I'm just kind of listening to it in the background, but I'm giving it more of like that honed in ear. Like I'm actually paying attention here and I want to know what's going on, but I'm also kind of seeing how it works in a casual setting, whether it be like if you're driving somewhere or if you're just doing something, cleaning around the house, whatever the case might be. Now, most albums, I find the sweet spot to be 4 to 5 listens, and this is what I normally find myself doing. So on the 4th and 5th listens of a record, that is generally when I have the lyrics tabs just pulled up for most of the tracks and I find myself going through it. I might not always be right there on that page, but I generally either the 4th or the 5th listen will just one time sit down and make sure that I've actually read the majority of the lyrics, if not all of them. And then on that final listen, that is where I like to once again give it my undivided attention. I either have the visualizer going or it's just me posted up in front of my computer sitting there listening, or else off somewhere with my headphones. And for those of you who are wondering, I will put a link down below to the headphones that I have. What I feel like differentiates me between a lot of reviewers is that since 2015 or so, I would say late 2015, early 2016, I have mainly been going off script for my reviews. And that I feel has helped me stand out, whereas many reviewers obviously solidly choose to actually read off of a script, make sure that they have their thoughts together beforehand. I like to, obviously when I'm listening, pay attention to the details and get it together in my head so that I come across with a different style of presentation. It's not that I'm hating whatsoever on people who do script, it's just that I want to stand out, because if we're all out here trying to actually say the exact same things or use the biggest vocabulary words or anything like that, then I feel like that's not uniqueness whatsoever. It's everybody doing the exact same thing, giving a book report essentially. I want mine to feel more like a chill conversation where you're listening to somebody talk about an album that they either love or maybe indifferent on or they can't stand. And I find myself just jotting down simple notes. I'll maybe tag a few things as I go over on a Google Doc just to make sure that I've got some sort of formatting done, but I don't like to take it further than that. In fact, as I read to the camera, it is normally completely, entirely unscripted unless it's an end-of-year list or something like that. Everything from 7 on Sunday to reviews to most of the top 10s are pretty much unscripted other than some loose notes here and there. However, this is not something that happened overnight. I wasn't just sitting down back 6 years ago and saying, all right, go, the camera's on, or else if I was, then it came out terrible. And you can definitely tell that. There's so many awkward ums and uhs and pauses and everything like that in my early videos, and not to say that I shouldn't have gone through that, because I think it made me stronger as the music critic and fan that I am today, but it's something that we went through and we got past together because, thank you, it was an awkward phase. But as you go through that, I think it makes you realize that you maybe have to get better at talking and communicating how you feel about something. You need to flesh out and explore, not just say, okay, that was my favorite, this was my favorite. And the advice that I would give to people that are actually up and coming on YouTube, whether it be like a commentary channel or if you're actually reviewing movies, music, art, whatever it might be that you are covering, I recommend actually maybe scripting out some of your early videos. At least make strong points, and I'm talking actually write out the good majority of what you want to say, because oftentimes you will find yourself forgetting exactly what you wanted to touch on in your video. I've only in the past 2 to 3 years really gotten comfortable with just going off notes and just giving myself minimal little time here and there to actually glance down. For the most part, everything comes from the top of my head, and I find myself searching for how I genuinely felt in the moment about that record. You may have noticed with my videos also that I try not to make a ton of cuts because I do want it to feel more like a conversation. I've moved towards that over time, I feel like. It's something where originally I might have been cutting every 10 to 15 seconds, a bunch of quick jump cuts and that sort of thing, because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to say. But I actually like when I'm actually able to talk for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, or maybe even longer without having to do a big cut or totally redo it or start over, because I will scrap those things. I don't like to just leave it at the end of a sentence and then start talking again. Nothing against people who do jump cuts. In fact, I love a lot of channels that do, like John's, for example, but me personally, I'm going for a different style. That's my review process, guys. I hope you enjoyed getting the insights there into my process, seeing exactly what I do, how I actually tackle these records. Please drop a like on this video and drop a comment letting me know what do you think if you're maybe a fellow music critic, maybe you're an up-and-coming one, or you're reviewing something else, or just make YouTube videos in general. What have you found has worked for you over time? Of course, you can leave other questions for Dear Jon. The new episode is coming out in a month from now, I think, because I actually have a video essay coming out on the next slot that's available for either Dear Jon or a special video, so hopefully you guys will stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe. If you're able to support me on Patreon, it would be greatly appreciated. It's the annotation over in the corner of your screen there. If you would like to see the last episode of the Dear Jon Q&A, then tap right here. If you would like to see another recent review I made on the channel, then tap right over here. Or you can connect with me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, everything like that. They're all linked in the description. Other than that, I'll see you soon on ARTV.